Okay, what did you learn?
Throwing an event handler in state just feels so gross to the point where I gave up using context
Oh yeah,
in
you
an
worked
app
around it?
recently because I didn't even think that I could do that. I just
Oh,
didn't
that it
think
was
of
like allowed,
because
or
it feels
it does feel wrong.
leaky.
Yes, it
But
does.
it's good to know that, I mean, that's,
It's kind of the accepted way to do
I,
this kind of
I
thing.
guess I should just be on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's what I do. No. So it does feel really kind of weird. If you're concerned about that, there is an alternative actually. You could add a property on state called context, or context value, whatever you want to call it, and then put on is false and toggle this dot toggle. And then it's at least nested inside of your state.
And then you pass this .state.context.
Yeah, so anytime you call set state to update context stuff, when you're doing this though, you actually have to pass in the whole thing. So you'd say context, and then you'd have to say on is not on, and then toggle is this dot toggle. Thanks to the way that, yeah, and something else is busted, but, oh yeah, here we go, state context. That's something else is busted, but yeah, that's the basic idea. And this extra stuff every single time I call set state to something that's in context is like, it made me step back and think, okay, so how bad is it really to put handlers? Yep.
Sure, that makes sense. I can see it being useful when you're using a lot of state on this component and then also passing some things down. But
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this case, it's not.
That's a really great point. So if there's some state you want to expose to context, but you don't want to expose all of your state, then that would definitely be a solution for that. Good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Any other things that you learned? Yeah, or questions?
With the new context API, what pattern have you seen like of having multiple contexts and like sort of layering them?
Yeah, because these consumers, they can get kind of nested. Like, what if I needed another consumer and another one and another one? Glad you asked. I actually have a pretty active blog. I blog once a week, and not that one, even though that looks like that might be the one. It is, I think it's in answers to common questions, but it might also be context, the new context API, which is actually not on my blog. I published it to Daily.js. This is where I introduce the context API, and I show, yeah, this is exactly what you're talking about. Andrew was lamenting this. And there is a solution. You can create your own component that does all of that composition for you. It handles all the nesting, and then your thing is only nested one level. Or there is actually a component called React Composer. There are like 6 of these now that can handle all of that nesting for you. I think if we load this up really quick, I can show you what that looks like. It is, yeah, so here's the super nested one. It's a lot of fun. Or one that's a little more composed. You can pass in all the providers. So, great question. Other things that you learned or questions? So somebody in the chat asked me to reiterate the reason why we're passing this .state to value rather than an object. And so what happens when you pass a value, or here, I'll just put this in right here. Every single time that this render function is called, this object is going to be reallocated. So we could assign this to const value equals that and pass that. That's functionally equivalent to what we had just a second ago. And what this means is we're creating a brand new object in memory and passing it into the value of toggle context provider. And so whenever toggle context provider is rendered, it's going to check, did the value prop change? Did the reference change at all? It doesn't do like a shallow compare to the previous or anything like that. It's just, did it change? And if it did, then it's going to re-render all of this stuff. Now, as we have it here, the value is going to change every single time, but the actual values within this value will never change. They're always the same. So re-rendering all the consumers is pointless because those values never change anyway. And so that's why we pass this .state in instead, because the object this .state will only change when state has actually changed.